So I think with the mindful nerd moment, we actually touched on this at the end of our episode for this week, but Jason Todd, I think everyone would agree, is quite an angry person. He feels a lot of anger, and anger is not a bad thing, but everything in moderation, right?
Right.
Um we talked about how he feels so much anger that it actually clouds his ability to heal his own hurt and see the in a different way than he would have liked, granted, but Bruce Wayne, Batman, really actually cares about him.
Yeah.
So I thought what we could do is try and help Jason Todd deal with his anger and try and be a bit mindful. Step back, be more of an observer of what he's feeling so he can ride the wave of anger as he has gotten out of the Lazarus pit and Talia's told him that the Joker's still alive. I think she actually,
Okay.
how does she put it? She of course doesn't say it outright. What does she say? Like, you have not been avenged or something like that.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah,
Something very
it
Talia.
was a very. I was about to say she says it in a very Talia way, like half riddle, but half
Yep.
great vocabulary. Like it's like, wow, look at you, perfect for Bruce.
Oh, yeah. Oh my god. Huh. What she call him? My lover.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Perfect for her lover. So, yeah, I figured we would have him getting out of the Lazarus pit. Emotions are running high. You find out that the Joker's still alive and just trying to give him a little bit more of a mindful moment as he's going through that difficult time. So, we'll do as usual. Close your eyes if you're comfortable with it. If not, just, you know, look at just one point in the room so you can let your eyes unfocus and take in a few deep breaths, using your breaths to help you focus on the mindful nerd moment. And when you're ready, I want you to imagine that you're Jason Todd and you're confused. You're not really sure what's going on. Things have been really confusing and overwhelming just in general. You kind of remembering some things in flashes. There are a lot of black moments that you can't really figure out. And all of a sudden, you burst through some unknown liquid and you realize you've been holding your breath and you just breathe in really deep, gasping for air. And you look around and you realize that you're in a Lazarus pit and you see Talia al Ghul right outside of it. She helps you out, hands you hands you a robe that you can wrap yourself in to dry off. And you start realizing you're putting your memories back together. You're realizing what's happened. You remember some flashes of moments. You realize that you've come back to life. And then Talia tells you that you have not been avenged. And you realize that Batman did not kill the Joker after he killed you. And I want you to just take in that moment. And it might be intense, and that's okay. Trying to use your breath to breathe through it, but try and notice what thoughts might come to you about what Bruce did or did not do. What feelings there are. And yes, there's some anger in there, but noticing that it's not only anger. It's anger and I feel anger. I have the feeling of anger. Maybe I also have the feeling of hurt. I have the feeling of disappointment. I have the feeling of being inferior. I'm having the thought that this is unfair. I'm having the thought that Bruce never loved me to begin with. I'm having the thought that if it was Dick Grayson, he would have killed the Joker. And you might notice your body tightening with just how overwhelming everything feels. You might be tightening your fists or feeling tension in your face, your neck, your back. But trying to, once again, notice the thoughts, notice the feelings, and not hold on to them, but let each one move past you. I'm having a feeling of anger, and I'm having a feeling of hurt. And as best you can, because your breathing has probably gotten pretty ragged, you might be holding it. You might be breathing pretty shallow or quickly, because that tends to happen when things get overwhelming or you feel angry and you get tense. But take a few deep breaths. Breathe in deeply in and making sure to exhale all of it out. Trying to release some of that tension and anger as best you can. Breathing in and breathing out. And acknowledging that you feel anger and that you also feel hurt. And you feel these things because you care and because Bruce is important to you and you're afraid that you weren't important to him. But try and embrace this with an openness to find out. And so you look at Talia, you thank her, and you prepare to go to find Bruce, hoping that maybe you're wrong. Maybe he does care. When you're ready, we're going to shift back out. So taking a deep breath in is Jason Todd, and then breathing out all that angsty tension. Breathing back in. And hey, you didn't just go through the Lazarus Pit, so hopefully you're feeling a little better than Jason Todd. And breathing back out. Shaking it off if you need to, because Jason Todd, he's angry, he's tense. And when you're ready, let's wrap up that mindful nerd moment. How was that for you?
Um, I liked it. And I honestly thought about like any of those moments when I've always been seeing red. The most
Mm,
difficult thing for me is slowing my mind down, because
yep.
when you're that angry, it's extremely easy to overthink and fill in the blanks yourself,
Yes.
which is very, very dangerous. It's so easy to just say, "Oh, this is why they did that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they meant when they did it. That's what they were thinking when they did that." And these are things that it's impossible to know. You're not Charles
Exactly.
Xavier, right? Like you
Yep.
don't you're not Charles Xavier, and everything isn't an episode of CSI for you to figure out, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it isn't a crime to solve, right? But it's so
Yep.
easy when you're that angry to fill in the blanks and shift the spectrum that you're 100% the victim,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever else is going on is that whoever your anger is pointed to, it's their fault. And what's so bad about anger is, like you said, anger isn't always a bad thing, but what is bad is when anger is pointed in the wrong direction,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I also want to throw out there that sometimes anger is pointed inward. So in this case,
Yes,
we've been
that's
talking
true.
about it being pointed outward, but it can, like you said, it can be pointed in a number of different directions. And yeah, absolutely. When it comes to anger, it helps us act. But if we act blindly, then it becomes less useful for us. And
Right.
yeah, just like you're talking about, anger can cause us to autofill and just go with our first assumption, our first
Hmm.
reaction. And sometimes in the moment, you have to go with the first reaction. It's why
Right.
a lot of times when people are trained to deal with emergency situations, lean into the anger rather than, say, fear, which might make you freeze or retreat.
Right.
But it's helpful, like you were talking about, if you're seeing red, to be able to have a moment to check in with yourself, to breathe, to not have to react to respond right then, because absolutely, that's probably it's absolutely not gonna be the best time to see things clearly. And then you might miss something. And you might target that anger towards something and actually end up with the very opposite of what you want. So Jason Todd ends up with a Batman that seems to not care about him when really there might have been an opportunity for both of them to have a bit of healing there instead of a lot of killing.
Right.